there was just a lot of addiction in my family. I think my dad's parents were addicts, which is probably why they died early. Alcohol, and I have siblings that struggled with it. My dad struggled with it, and I think all of that plays a part in developing who I am. And that was kind of when this whole thing came to a head, was when I had a student of mine who was struggling with addiction, and right at that same time, within about a week, my brother had passed away from alcoholism. And I saw this kid who told me he was sober because of the things I said, and I was like, man, I wish somebody could have got to my brother when he was your age. And that at that moment was like, man, I gotta do something more to make a difference in the lives of others.
Welcome back to the Maley Way. I'm your host, Jim Maley. Today's guest is an educator, a speaker, and a high-performance coach focused on helping others thrive. With more than 2 decades in education, he combines practical strategies with personal experience to help people unlock growth, healing, and purpose. His own transformation began during a time of uncertainty, and today he helps others navigate mental health struggles, personal development, and meaningful change. Joe Bush, welcome to the Maley Way.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited. We've been talking around this for a little while, and you're a teacher over at Conant. I'm at Elk Grove High School, which is 6 miles away, and so we knew some of the same people, and I'm really glad we're finally getting a chance to do this.
Yeah, absolutely. And Joe, I had heard of you through Zach Gale. I think the first time I met Zach, I spoke at his Me Too We men's group, and he had mentioned you. He was like, you got to connect with this guy. So I think I followed you on Instagram and was kind of following along with your stuff, but we didn't really connect. And then this couple months ago, I went and spoke at Meade Junior High School, and afterward, it went pretty well, I thought. And it was kind of a toned down version of my normal thing. I kind of take out some things because it's a little bit of a younger crowd, but I got one of the most insightful emails I've ever gotten. And it was just so insightful, very appreciative, gratitude for the presentation that I gave. And it was from a 7th grader, I believe 7th grader, right?
Yeah.
And I noticed the last name on it, and it said Bush. And I was like, God, I know that guy that Zach Gale said. I know he's from Elk Grove. I'm wondering if they're related. So I called up Zach, and he's like, yes, that's his son. So then I contacted you, and that was like our first real conversation. And it's kind of just goes to show, and I think you've probably dealt with this too, when you go, all the stuff that you're doing, it kind of just leads to other opportunities. Just one small thing might lead to another opportunity. One small way you maybe impacted somebody leads to something else. And that's kind of how this whole thing happened. Did you get that, with all the stuff that you're doing? That networking aspect where just things kind of trickle down from making a little impact here or there.
Absolutely. And even with Zach Gale, I didn't know who he was at all, but he works with the guy Patrick O'Malley, and Patrick O'Malley was a freshman in my human geo class, and I made an impact on his life and his brother's life. And then we came back around, and he's like, oh, you got to meet Zach. And so then I went and spoke at the Me Too We meeting, and all these things come together. And then, my son hearing your speech, and he and I talked about it the next day, and he's like, man, Dad, it was, I felt seen, I felt heard. It was like he was speaking right to me. And, you were a basketball player, and he was going through some basketball, struggles, and had some success. There's always ups and downs, like good seasons, bad seasons. And so I felt, in an audience of a few hundred kids, you might as well have just been him, because you just hit it right at his heart. And he was really, really grateful. And that led to a great conversation of he and I. The next day, we were driving to go get track shoes, and we just had a really good conversation. So all those things opened up, and the impact that you made was huge.
Yeah, no, and it was cool too. Like I said, his email, you gotta ask him. It seemed like it wasn't Chat GPT'd either. It seemed like it was so well done, but it seemed like it was coming from a kid. I was amazed at how articulate it was. You got to ask
Yeah,
him.
he's
Was it?
no, he's a great writer. As a matter of fact,
Yeah,
last week he was just in the finals, the district finals for the Spanish speech contest, and so
yeah,
he had written a speech and then had to do it in Spanish because he's grown up in the dual language program. But no, he's a very very gifted writer, and
yeah. It,
we
it
see
was
like some of his
impressive.
poetry. Well, yeah,
Yeah,
and those are the things as a speaker, as a teacher, that when you just never forget
yeah,
those things, and it stays with you, and you know you're making a difference.
yeah. Yeah. Well, before we get into all the stuff that you're doing now, I kind of want to go back in the past, like
Yeah.
where you came from, your family growing up, all that good stuff. Kind of take us through that.
So I'm the youngest of 7 children,
Oh
and
wow.
I grew up in Elk Grove.
Yeah.
Yeah, my mom was married, had a daughter. My dad was married, had a daughter and 4 boys, and then their spouses passed away. They got married, and then I was born. So, and I was my dad was 49 when I was born, and my mom was 37. So like
Oh wow.
my oldest sister's 25 years older than me, and so there was like an interesting dynamic with that. Actually, my oldest nieces now are like 4 years younger than I am.
Oh,
Um,
God.
and so, yeah, we're more like peers. And then, I mean, even my own kids are really their cousins, and they've just always called like, oh, Aunt Tammy, Aunt Holly. I'm like, oh, they're really your cousins. Like, my kids were
Yeah.
lost by that. But
Yeah.
yeah, I grew up in a big, giant, loving house. And I think in terms of mental health, whatever. I mean, there was all sorts of things that I don't think I figured out until later. But
Mm.
my dad was, by the time he was 11, he had lost both of his parents, and he lived at home for 6 weeks before anyone at school kind of figured it out. He just made peanut butter sandwiches and went to school, and then the next day or after that 6 weeks, was taken in by a family who then just raised him, and that's who I knew as my grandparents, even though they weren't. And then I have a whole side, like he moved into that house, and his brother, stepbrother, I guess, was just being born. And so like I've always called him uncle, even though we have zero blood,
Yeah.
relation. So I think growing up in that world, when I heard that, it was like, well, let's not really complain about anything, because look what happened to dad.
Yeah.
And
Right.
and there was a lot of chaos, and I'm always open and honest with this because I think it is part of my story. There was there's a lot of addiction in my family. I think my dad's parents were addicts, which is probably why they died early. Alcohol, and I have siblings that struggled with it. My dad struggled with it, and I think all of that plays a part in developing who I am. And that was kind of when this whole thing came to a head, was when I had a student of mine who was struggling with addiction, and right at that same time, within about a week, my brother had passed away from alcoholism. And I saw this kid who told me he was sober because of the things I said, and I was like, man, like I wish somebody could have got to my brother when he was your age. And that at that moment was like, man, I gotta do something more to make a difference in the lives of others. And that's when the leadership class was born, and that's when the speaking kind of started, the life coaching started, because I wanted to make a bigger impact.
Yeah. Well, okay. So I wanted to get back. You were talking about mental health, and I know your all what you do goes beyond just mental health.
Yeah.
However, I wanted to talk about like what was like your education with mental health growing up at
Hmm.
that
Yeah, I would say it was, things were not talked about very much in my house, that it was
time.
just sort of just figure it out. Like whatever, like it'll be fine. And I think that led to a lot of problems later, because, and I mean, I'm 47 years old. I mean, my dad was born in 1929. So he went to the Korean War. I mean, the discussions of problems, you just shut up and you go to work. Like that's what you do.
Yeah. Hmm.
And so when, my mom passed away right at the beginning of my senior year, and I was 17, and like, that was hard. And it was, I mean, there was nothing like, people didn't, you just like, well, I'm going to just go to school the next day, I guess. Like, I don't
Yeah.
really didn't know how to, and, I remember midway through college, I went to counseling for a little bit, and it just, I don't know, it didn't really work, or maybe I didn't give it enough effort. But then, I got married, I got a job, things were good. And I still felt I was 27, 28 years old, and I just felt this like something was missing in my life. And,
Mhm.
I don't know if it was purpose, but then I think I went to counseling again. And that was when a lot of the healing took place of
Yeah.
recognizing, hey, as a little kid, I wasn't heard. I had a bunch of older brothers. I saw some crazy ass stuff that was going on,
Mhm.
and I had to try to figure it out and figure out like why do why do I like drinking so much? Like I've seen the damages it caused to my siblings and my dad. Like why do I do that? And sometimes you do things just because they're comfortable, even if they're not good for you.
Yeah. Well, and like I always talk about too, like I've talked to people who have dealt with alcoholism on the podcast, and one of the things that they often say is that they think it started because of a mental health type thing, and then they
Hmm.
turn to the alcohol, and then it just snowballed. Then it made the mental health stuff worse. Do you think
Right.
that was maybe part of what was going on? Maybe, I don't want to, you know, I don't
No,
know. That could have been something that was going on in your family.
absolutely. I mean, I think there's a psychologist out there. His name is Gabor Mate, and he talks about how 95% of all addictions have something to do with a childhood trauma.
Hmm.
And so I look at like my dad, who at 11 lost both of his parents. Then, he was married for 20 plus years and his wife passed away. And so his kids then were without a mom. And then, that happened to me. So it's like this cycle. And so rather than feel the feelings, you just mask it. And
Yeah,
then you do that. And then it's like, well, I feel bad. And then I'm going to drink. Well, I feel better. And then you wake up and you feel bad. And then you're like, well, maybe I should do more. And I was never like a drink every day guy. My
yeah,
siblings were, but I think, yeah, there's things, if you don't deal with those mental health issues early on, they blow up later. And I tell it to my students all the time that these decisions, these things that don't get handled at 18 show up in your marriages at 38 and your parenting
yeah.
at 40. And
Mhm.
that's the challenge.
Now, what's your ancestry? Was it Irish or like a,
Yeah, Irish. Yeah, my dad's side's Irish, mom Italian
okay.
and German.
Yeah, because well, this is one of I always say that because I'm Irish and obviously the alcohol stuff goes along with that. But
Mhm.
like I've been like looking it up and I'm like, well, is it because of something inherently inside of Irish people, or is it more the culture of, hey, we are going to shut up and put our head down and we're going to just work through it and then we turn to the alcohol? Like, I do feel like there is that culture in certain communities that kind of doesn't do you any favors in terms of the mental health side.
Yeah, I would say, it is, they talk about the disease of addiction, that there
Yeah.
is a genetic component to it. And then
Yeah.
you add the cultural piece onto it, where you're just, yeah, you're not supposed to say anything, just pull yourself up by your bootstraps and move on. And, what do you got to complain about? Because, I'll give you something to complain about kind of parenting, uh, which, isn't the best. And yeah, now I've had to pause and think about myself as a parent and how there are good things that my parents did and there are bad things that my parents did. And so I
Yeah.
think hopefully every generation, if I can scale down the bad stuff and have more of the good stuff, then that passes on to my kids being better parents in the future.
Yeah. No, okay. So then obviously you losing, I mean, I lost my mom at 35 and it did some damage.
Yeah.
I can't imagine losing my mother as a senior in high school or like your dad. I'm sure that obviously affected you for a long time. And I think you
Yeah.
mentioned that when we talked about, I don't know what year it was, but it was a bunch of uncertainty that you were going through. What exactly was going on at that time and like how did that lead to you kind of transforming?
I remember the first time it really, well, I mean, obviously my mom died, it hit me the whole year,
Hmm.
but I remember I went to Europe in December of 1999. And I had a friend out there and he was studying in Versailles. And so two buddies from high school and I, we went out there and we spent New Year's Eve, 1999 was my 21st birthday. I was 100 yards from the Eiffel Tower, just like amazing. And then we were on a train the next day from Paris to Rome. And I just remember being miserable, being like, this sucks. Like, I miss home. I miss my family. I'm not happy. Like, I miss my mom. And I remember writing down just a bunch of stuff. Like, what could I do? Is on the back of a train ticket. Like, what could I do to be happy? And, take more walks, smile, laugh, all sorts of just, generic stuff. And it made me feel better a little while. And I put it away. I didn't really do anything with it. And then I think there was a point I was a varsity soccer coach at Elk Grove High School. I had just gotten AP classes. We had just bought a house. Like, all these milestones were happening. And I remember just not being happy. And I went back to this book. It was called The Rhythm of Life by Matthew Kelly. And I had read it. He came and spoke at the Driscoll Catholic High School when I was teaching there in my first 2 years. And I went back and I read it. And it just talked about being the best version of yourself. And that was the first I'd ever heard of that. Like, everyone says it now, but he was really one of the early people to say it. And there was a lot of uncertainty, and he just made it real simple. And he said, hey, just everything in life has a rhythm. That the oceans, the wave, like, things just come and go in rhythms and seasons. And if you can ask yourself in any decision, it's going to make me a better person or a less of a better version of myself, what decision are you going to make? And he started with food. If I can eat a chicken salad versus a burger and a ton of fries, just choose the chicken salad. If I can choose to go for a walk with my wife or just sit on the internet, I'm going to have a better relationship if I go for a walk with my wife. And so I started thinking about those things, just little by little, simple decisions. And I started feeling happier. And then I went back to that list that I wrote in Europe, and I started doing more and more of those things. And I was like, man, this is what it takes. It's just this little simple thing. And it's sort of, I don't know, then I felt more purposeful and more grateful. And I just felt better overall.
Yeah. Well, you met the word you used right there, purpose. That was actually going to be my next point. It's like, there's a difference between, I think, our occupation and our job and our purpose. And I guess it's taken me a long time to figure out and it's taken some real struggles. It's taken those. And I initially thought my purpose was like a basketball coach. Well, first it was a player, coach. And I realized, like, that wasn't really giving me my purpose. It wasn't until I started doing, like, all of this stuff. And by doing this, it's made me way, way better at my occupation of being a teacher. And I heard you say it earlier, like, that you will answer stuff from your students and talk to your students about real stuff. Like, I just have felt like by being vulnerable, I guess you could say, by sharing some of my struggles, it's just made me such a better teacher. And it's made me, even from a discipline standpoint, like, it's allowed me to be even more of a disciplinarian, because these kids are like, well, hey, I'm going to listen to that guy because he's willing to put himself out there. I guess that's a long way of asking. Like, you seem to have found your purpose. Like, how did you get to that point?
I mean, a lot of it was faith-based, and just praying and thinking and asking God who it is that he wants me to be. And I think it's, that's where it started. And I went back and I put God first. And I would say that I had a life that was very compartmentalized for a while, where I was a teacher, and then a separate box I was a parent, and a separate box I was a husband, and then a coach, and then I had my faith on the side. And I think I made a decision to just put faith at the center, and that became purpose, and then everything just expanded. And like you were saying, it's you've done more, but yet you have more energy, which doesn't seem to make sense. And a lot of people, like, you'll see a person, and with athletes during basketball season, football season, baseball season, it seems like you have enough time to get everything done. But then when you stop playing, basketball's over, And then you have all this time, you start falling behind in your homework. It's like,
Yeah.
why is that? And so we're really meant to be expansive beings, that we're meant to grow. And so if you get healthier, you get more fit, you have more energy to be a parent, more energy to be a teacher, more energy to speak. And so that's really where it started, was that, and I went through and I did all these exercises on writing, and I came up with this just purpose statement. And like, the purpose of my life is to honor God by using my talents and abilities to help others grow to be better versions of themselves. I'll be a joyful example of Christian living that leaves behind wisdom and happiness to everyone who knew me. And then I took this from Tony Dungy, and I thought it was brilliant. My success will be measured by changed lives, strong character, and eternal values.
Mm-hmm. That's what it's all about. And I mean, that's kind of what that's what I'm trying to do. I need to get better at the actual, the religion aspect of it. Like, I'm Catholic. I want to do it. And like, kind of just hearing you say, like, trying to make those changes. Like, I need to go to church more. I enjoy it when I'm there. I like being there. I like having the time to think. I just don't do it as much as as I should. And I want to get back involved. Like, how would you, for a guy like me who, like, I have the desire, I get something out of it. What would you say to me as like a way to really get myself back there?
I would look at it as more of a relationship than a task.
Okay.
So every day, and this just happened last year in Lent, I made a decision during Lent last year that I was going to stop at the Adoration Chapel at Alexian Brothers Hospital every single day at Lent for 10 minutes and just sit, just think, just pray. And now I find myself doing it almost every day. Like, I wake up in the morning, I take a walk, I go to the hospital, I sit there. And so that was just my 10 minutes. And that goes back to the rhythm of life. He talks about going to a church and just sitting there for 5 or 10 minutes, because it's hard. Like, when you have, like, oh, I'm going to try to read the Bible in a year, and I'm going to go to church, and I'm going to pray, and I'm going to do the rosary. Like, there's all these things. And so I just started. It comes down to, like, habit stacking. You just do one small thing. And maybe it's just like, I've read Proverbs every morning since 2015. And on the first day of the month, I read Proverbs 1. There's 31 Proverbs. So on the 31st of the month, you read 31 and you start over again. And it is the greatest wisdom literature. Everything you read from, John Maxwell to Tony Robbins, like, all that stuff is just in Proverbs. It's just said differently. Yeah. And so that was a really easy 3-minute thing to do. Just Proverbs each day. You don't have to think about it. You're like, oh, today's the 7th. I'll read Proverbs 7. And go that route. But I think it's, there's a song, and it talks about faith. It's like, it's more like falling in love than it is a task. Like, you don't wake up and think, man, I've got to do all this stuff because my wife wants me to do it. You do it because you're in love with her.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I like what you're saying too about, like, just stacking, that term you use, stacking habits. Like, I think I need to get in better. Like, I do think, like, I follow the principles. I follow the principles. Yeah. I just need to do a better job of, I don't know, incorporating, like, prayer and all that type of stuff, because I do understand the value of it. And I feel like as a parent, it's like, I'm trying to, like, juggle everything, and, like, that has gone on the back burner, and I need to get it back. I want to get it back. I'm going to start stacking habits. I'm going to start.
Yeah. There you go. Yeah.
All right. Well, okay. So you kind of started transforming yourself, and you kind of found that purpose, and you were a teacher all along, right? You've been teaching for 20 years. I guess I want to talk about that as your role as a teacher. How has that changed since when? I know a lot has changed with kids, with how things are done. How has it changed since, like, then to where you're at now?
What kids need more than anything now is authenticity of the people that are in front of them. And in my early years of teaching, I was hiding things about myself. I was the funny teacher, and always was going to have a good time. Didn't know if there was a lot of substance. I was teaching AP US history, and honestly, the kids knew more than I did, and they knew it. And so I was like intimidated by that. And then I started putting up a quote of the day, and I found that we were talking more about the quote of the day than anything else. And then I started teaching sociology, and there was a lot more wiggle room versus AP US of what I could talk about. And then, we sociology, we talked about family dynamics, and we talked about addiction, and we talked about just class and culture and race. And it was easier to be vulnerable in those situations and easier to be authentic. And that's what rolled into the leadership class, was the authenticity. And that's what's going to carry through. Kids and everyone else is worried about AI, and there's, they are going to replace some jobs. There's no question about it. The same way that car replaced people that used to raise horses, because that's how you moved about the country. But the authentic nature of teachers, the authentic nature of people, is really what we're going to look for, because those are our human needs: love, connection, significance, certainty, uncertainty. And we need to be able to provide those to the people that are in front of us, because if they don't have those things, they're not going to buy into what we're saying. It doesn't matter. The line I use all the time is, when I got to the leadership class, I realized that in all my AP US history, my lecture on Andrew Jackson never changed anyone's life. No one was like, man, that's the one, man. Thank you for that. Like, now I understand life. And so, and I had coaching. Like, coaching was good. I think there was a lot more life lessons in coaching. But just to be able to do it every day with a leadership class, and it's really like a leadership, service, and personal development class. That's what matters. And I think that kids will just share stuff with me because there's an authenticity. And I always start the first day. I go deep, and I do it with my speeches too. I go deep as quickly as I can to just say, here's where it started. My brother passed away. I helped this kid with his addiction. This is like, life was good, and then another thing hits you, and then life was better, and then another thing hits you. And they're like, wow, man, if he's willing to share that with us, knowing us for 10 minutes, what else is he going to share? And I feel comfortable with him. And that's what I want it to be.
Well, and it's funny, same thing. I have had the very similar experience, but it was the exact opposite of how I learned how to teach. I don't know if that was the case for you, but for me, it was like, you never share anything about yourself. Like, that's how I started, like, because that's how I was taught. Like, that's how you were supposed to do it. And then at some point, I was just kind of like, screw this. Like, this ain't working. And like, then it was like, once I started really kind of being authentic, like you're saying, and sharing those vulnerabilities, like, it just, kids can see through like fake. They can see through. But when you, like, I've had some of my best relationships with some of the kids that were the most challenging once I started doing this, because you're real. And now, obviously, you can't talk about like everything, and you don't want to, like that. You want to stay away from a lot of different things. But if you can share, like, and I think that goes with anything, like even politics. And I'm not going to get into specific politics, but like, I just want someone to say, like, yeah, I did all these bad things, or like, yeah, I cheated to get into law school. Like, I can live with that if you just kind of like say it. And I always go back to like my Andy Pettit theory. Do you remember Andy Pettit, the baseball pitcher? So he got caught with roids, and all those other guys were denying it, like trying to destroy other people's lives. And he was just kind of like, you know what? I was trying to recover from an injury. I did it. And like, everyone was just like, oh, okay. That, like, it was just instantly forgiven. Like, I just wish there was more honesty with everything. And I think as teachers, I think we need to kind of almost model that in a way.
Yeah. And the same thing for our kids. Like, man, I made a mistake. I mean, and I've said, mean things to my kids, and it's just like, I'm sorry. Like, that phrase of, being in love means never having to say you're sorry is wrong. You should say it all the time, because there's always mistakes that are made, and times I've been short with my kids and had to make adjustments, but I want them to see me as a human being who's trying to figure life out myself, and that I'm willing to be open and honest with them. And the same is true for the classroom, that I'm not perfect, and here are the struggles that I face. And with my coaching, with my teaching, it's really about, hey, I struggled from 17 to 27, and I want to create this shortcut for you so you don't have to go through these same obstacles that I had to go through.
Yeah. No, I mean, again, like it's exactly like my thoughts. And I know you said this before we started, that we're kind of like we're at two different schools, but I think we're on the same wavelength with that. Like
Right.
that's one of the reasons why I'm doing this whole thing, is like, it took me a long time to figure it out. And like, I feel like I'm a pretty smart person, and it took me a long, but I was a very stubborn person. And I was a very like put my head down, do it myself type of person, which helped me in a lot of respects. It allowed me to be a pretty good athlete when I was like 65 pounds underweight. Like, it allowed me to when I wasn't like all that naturally smart, but it destroyed me in terms of like, I needed help and I wasn't willing to do it. And I guess I look at my story now and like, I want to shorten that time frame, like a shortcut, like you said. Give these kids a shortcut so they don't have to go through it.
Yeah. And even, the conversation, or the speech you did at my son's school, that was right around the time he was deciding whether he was going to play basketball again in the spring. He had played a fall league, he played a winter league, and then he decided on a spring league. And I think he was just like, it's okay. It's okay to take a break. Like, I've done a lot. I'm right where I need to be as a 7th grader. And, now he's running track and he's loved it. He just broke his school record in the high jump, which he literally just was like, I have no idea what events I'm going to do. And they're like, try high jump. And he's like, cool. And then his 4th meet, he breaks his school record. Yeah. And it's,
fun too, not as much pressure for him too. Like, he's not putting as much on himself.
Yeah. And it's wild. Like, he's a very, very hard worker. And I always tell the story. He was 3rd grade. He scored 2 points the whole season in his Park District League. And then he comes up to me at the end of the season. He's like, yeah, I didn't make the All-Star team. And I'm like, yeah, man, you scored 2 points. Trying to make the All-Star team. But then he said to me, he's like, I want to make the All-Star team. And I'm like, okay, like, let's put in the work. And he did. And the next year, his Park District team won. And then he's like, I want to make the feeder team. Then he made the feeder team, and he was a leading scorer. And then we lost our opening playoff game, and it was like so heartbreaking. And then the next year we came back and we were 34-2. And, he went 11 for 12 from the free throw line in a championship game.
Wow.
At 12 years old, which is insane. But again, he was just so locked in. And I think, then he went to the travel, and then he made the top team. And so I think it's a perfect break, because I see it all the time. This is where like parents call me and it's like, my kid is 12 and they're 13 and they're struggling. Can you help them? And the answer is always the same. Give them a break. Like, they're fine. I was just talking with someone, they said, I forget, it was some NBA guy. And he's like, there's only been like 3,500 players total ever in the NBA.
Yeah, I know. It's ridiculous.
You're like, but it's been around since the 60s. And I'm like, yeah, but like you whatever, there's 60 people in the draft, 40 of them don't really make it. I answered, so it's wild. And even just like the scholarship stuff and the NIL stuff, it's bananas. But I've said this to my wife so many times. I'm like, he's so happy. I'm like, that's all I want. I want my kids to be happy. And most kids, I think, they think their parents want something way different for them. And I really think it's just they want to be happy. And some parents think, hey, I'm putting him in all these leagues and we're traveling and we're doing all this stuff. That'll make him happy. But like, I've just stepped back and it's like, he's just a kid, and it's fun to hang out.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, I know we talked and it just kind of seemed like, and your son reminded me of myself, like as a kid, like put tremendous, and my dad, I always say this, but if you saw my dad, you might think that he was like a guy like beating me after games just because he has like that stoic face. But he was the most positive person, and he was always trying to calm me down. Because be like, listen, who cares? Like, blah, blah, blah. It doesn't matter. Like, just go and
Right.
have fun. And he still couldn't, it still didn't get through to me. Like, I was
Yeah.
just relentless. And
Right.
that's why it's cool. Like, that I think your guy is able to kind of recognize and put into words. Like, he has the vocabulary, which I didn't have the
Yeah.
vocabulary to address anything. Like, I didn't know, I just didn't know what the hell was going on. And
Yeah.
it seemed like at least he's got that vocabulary. He's got that a little bit of a background, which I think is a good sign for, like my kids who are a little younger as they're growing up, hopefully that they can
Yeah.
find that shortcut.
Right. And I've had that with my own students, and I've said this time, like you'll read a book, you'll listen to somebody, and I'll say like they finally gave language to the thing that I was feeling.
Yeah.
I didn't I was the exact same way. It's like I mean at 11, if someone I'd be like, I don't know, I feel icky. Well,
Yeah.
what feels icky? I don't know.
Yeah.
I just don't know what's right. And to hear him, and I had another, a student. I gave a speech up at Round Lake, and somebody said the same thing. It's like I just like Joe Bush came in, and I felt seen, and I felt heard, and he just told a story that was vulnerable, and it made sense because I was like, man, I'm not alone. And I think
Yes.
that's the other part of it too, is recognizing there are other people who've been there, and if they've been there and they've made it through, I can as well.
Okay, so you mentioned, so this is my thing, and I know you deal with it too, like just with what you're saying. How do you get that out there without looking, I always say like a tool. Like I do the social media thing, but like how do I get it out there that like what I'm doing is impactful or what you're doing is impactful without it being like a look at me situation. You know what I mean? Like that's what I struggle with because I know there's impact. Like I hear it from kids all the time. How do I navigate that? Like how do you navigate that aspect?
Well, yeah. So if you look at my Instagram, there's like a little testimonial section of my
Yeah.
coaching clients, and you know, I just I try to come from the sense of vulnerability of saying, hey, people are out there and they're struggling. Here's what I've done. Here's
Yeah.
how I've helped. But I always put it on me. Like I this is a good way, and maybe you can use this. I teach the things that I need the most.
Hmm.
And I always tell my students at the end of the year, like, thanks guys, like you just counseled me through another year. Appreciate it. Because every year is different because I'm learning something new. And so I don't want to like punch people in the face with it, be like, I'm the greatest speaker of all time.
Right.
But I really try those back end channels of just having real conversations. And I spoke at the Illinois Human Performance Project, and then somebody came up to me and was like, we would love to have you speak at Round Lake High School. And I spoke at Round Lake, and there was a principal from another school, and then she's like, we want you at the Lake County Leadership Conference. And so none of that happened with me posting anything. It was
Yeah.
all the people that I knew. And even some of the coaching clients that I have right now are friends of former students or people that have just given me a referral. And so I haven't had to go out too much. But I think to answer the question, if what you're putting on social media is adding value right away, then you won't look like a tool.
Yeah.
Because where the tools come in is, hey, blah, 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 buy my program. But you're putting it out there like, hey, here's a struggle, and we'll have clips of this. Hey, here's a struggle that I dealt with. Here's how I dealt with it. Boom. This is just me. This is Jim. This is Joe. Not selling anything. If you're interested in following me, I've got more stuff. But I want to give you something. And if you want more of that, then we'll talk and maybe we can get together and maybe there's a speech out there, but it just can't be so over the top. Like we gotta, like you don't meet somebody and propose to them on the first day. You've got to like let's date a little bit before we get
Right.
going.
Yeah.
But and I think having fun with it. We're gonna do.
Yeah.
I
It's
asked
a
my
nice
students.
deal. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna ask my students. I always ask them like, what is one thing you changed your mind about because of leadership class? And so we're just going to take a bunch of silly pictures, and then we're just going to put some of those quotes out there, and we're going to hang them around the room, and we'll put some on social media. But then it's that thing that's like, hey, here's a guy, he's real, he's having fun with the students, and here's something you can learn from.
Yeah. No, that's okay. So I guess this could be your time right now, because I want to talk about like exactly what you do with your coaching stuff, because as I told you before, like I get people coming up to me all the time, like after I speak, and like, well, where can I go? Who can I go see that could maybe help me or help my kid or help my brother through this? And I'm always like, listen, I am not that guy. Like I will talk and like let you know that you're not alone, but like that's not me. My thing is the speaking aspect. So I
Right.
want to be able to connect people to people that can actually help. And I think you're one of those people. But I want you to like take this time to kind of describe maybe what you do with that coaching side.
So I focus so much on this just simple concept of who do you want to be? That's it. We start with this, who are you being called to be? And we ask kids so much, like, what do you want to be when you get older? What do you want to be? And it's so hard because 70% of American workers hate their jobs. You go to school, you spend $150,000 to get a degree in accounting. You're an accountant for 3 years, and then you hate your job, and you're like, well, I'm an accountant, so I'll do this until I'm 62, and then I'll retire, and then I'll be happy. But the question of who do you want to be changes, because most people say, like, I want to be happy. Okay, that's a great first start. Now, what are some steps we get there? And somebody gave language to me I was in this men's program, but it's this concept of be, do, have. So who do you want to be? What do people who are like that do? And then you have the fruits of the labor that you put in. So as I think about myself as a speaker, as a coach, I want to inspire as many people as I can. So what do I have to do? I have to constantly be learning. I have to constantly be connecting with people, constantly having conversations. And when I do that, I have the benefits. Like right now, I'm so energized by having this conversation with you because I know who I am. I know the things that I had to do. And then I'm having and reaping the rewards from the things that I put in. And then, the other part of coaching is helping people understand that the answer is already inside of them. They just need some way to unlock that. And, like I even saw with my own son, like what did he need? He needed a break. And I was working with a young man who was, I think, 12 years old. And, parents loved him and giving him all this stuff and setting him up for all these, basketball and baseball and all that. And we got to the point where the kid, I finally drew it out, and he's like, I really love watching movies with my mom.
Mm-hmm.
And I asked her, I said, when's the last? She's like, I don't know, maybe like 2 months ago. I said, just try that. Like, he might be a little more relaxed on the court Saturday morning if you guys watch a game or watch a movie together on a Friday night. Yeah. And that's like the important thing. And so, right now I have two coaches. I have a mindfulness coach, and then I have a business coach, and both of them are helping me see the blind spots in my life. And that's what the coaching does. And so, what I would say that here's the difference, and it's real simple: coaching versus therapy. So, therapy, you're in a hole, and coaching, you're in a hole. The coach is, how are we going to get out of this hole? Like, let's figure out the ladder. Let's get there. Therapy, let's evaluate the different parts of the hole while we're there, what we're feeling. We might go back. We might do some inner child work. And so for me, dealing with the loss of my mom and struggling, that required therapy. And coaching is, where I'm at right now. I know who I am. I know the direction. I just want to get there faster. And so anyone that's struggling with, a real deep mental health challenge, I would say therapy, as long as the therapist is helping them set goals. So we'll talk about the things, but then we've got to set a goal. So we're dealing with anxiety, depression, whatever. There might be a time of medication to deal with that temporarily, but we don't want that to be a forever thing. And so the therapy needs to be working towards, okay, so we're anxious in this situation. Why are we there? We'll figure it out and then make steps. Whereas with coaching, we work on the mindset, we work on the direction of who it is that you want to be. And we'll do a little bit of talking of the past, like how did this happen and what are some of the challenges that you faced in the past. And that's where we move forward. But I'll do work with NLP, neuro linguistic programming. So I worked with a girl who was like a D1 softball player, and she was batting 150 through her first 10 games of the season. And we did a session where we kind of just changed her visuals of what was happening in her life. And we had this image of a backpack. So when she got up, she was so tight. And she's like, it just feels crunched. I go, yeah, it's like you're wearing a backpack with all the pressure because you're a D1 person, but you can't hit the ball right now. I said, what if you just go up and take the backpack off? And she's like, oh my gosh, it feels so good. And so every time she went up to bat, her team would be like, take off the backpack. And so she dropped the backpack, and then all of a sudden she's batting 600.
Oh,
and
wow.
that's one little simple thing. She just hit her first home run this year in a D1 program, and it's just like things are clicking. So that's some of the coaching and how it works, and getting over those mental blocks of, man, I can't hit a free throw, I can't put the ball in the hole. That's where the coaching comes in.
Now, okay, so what does that do for you? Like hearing that girl, that worked, or hearing like the success, like what does that give you? Like, do you get like do you get your own mental health boost when you hear stuff like that?
Absolutely. I mean,
Yeah.
you know that you're adding value to the lives of other people, and that's it. Like that's the key thing. And whether it's through speaking or through coaching, I just want to know that I'm serving and inspiring other people. And I'm working with a guy right now who's just he's got a lot of goals and his business is growing, and we're just talking through it, and now he's like, man, I've got a 10% growth in my business. It's like 10% more people have signed up, and he's raised his rates. And I'm like, that's awesome. And like that's what it's all about. And so yeah, I get pumped about those things. Like I want to see people win. And that's, with you, like I've been contacting as many people as I know, like, hey, we got to get Jim in there. We got to speak. Same thing with Zach. Like I don't win if you lose. It's not like a zero-sum game.
Yeah.
Like we all win together. And that's, so that girl goes off onto a D1 program and she has success and she just has a better life. And if she never talks to me again, I love just knowing that I was one little part of that journey.
Yeah, it's almost, I was never a drug user, but I feel like when like you hear, like when I heard from your son, or when I hear kids come up and talk to me after I speak, it's like that high. It's like a high I want to keep getting. And like it's one of my motivational factors is like I feel that high and I know it's good for my mental health, and it's almost, that's why I think it's hilarious for me as someone, I was like, I told you this before, like quiet, like wouldn't say a word. And my mother was the exact opposite. She was like, maybe that's why I didn't talk, because she was talking for me. But and now this is what I'm doing, and now I feel like, shoot, like medication helped me, and like kind of like you said, I think it was like a temporary thing though, or it was like it was a way to get out, but it wasn't a way to prevent.
Right.
This type of stuff, me just talking and being an idiot on a podcast, has been so helpful. And like going and talking to different groups, it's been so helpful for me as well. And I feel like I keep like wanting to do it more and more because you get that high out of it from helping others. And I think that connects back to your faith. Like it's got to connect back. Like this is your purpose. Your purpose is to do this, and I feel like my purpose is to do it as well. Yeah,
for sure. And it's, I mean, you're expanding other people. You're teaching the things that you need most, and so what'll happen too is you'll go and you'll do this for 5 years, and then you'll be adding in new parts of your speech, and it will continue. You'll continue to grow because your kids will get older, and you'll need to be different in responding to them. And then maybe you start talking to parents, And so
Right.
all those things will change. And I know for me, like my whole identity was, I wanted to be a varsity soccer coach. And then I got that. And then I was like, man, I'm not good. I want to do something else. And now I'm doing this. And there's this, I'm a huge, I don't know if you know, I'm a huge Eric Church. He's a country music guy, huge
Mm-hmm.
fan.
Yep.
Seen him like 20, 25 times. And there's this line, I actually always listen to it before I go and speak. And it's in the middle of a song called How About You? And he just like, they just hit this riff and he's like, I might just stay all night long. And like, that's how I feel when I'm speaking. It's like, come on, let's, I'll give you everything you got. You got to give it back to me. And those moments, like, it's just harmony, it's perfection. And I just, I want to stay all night long. And even when I'm coaching people, it's the same way. Like when that person's clicking and then you see that business growth, that home run they hit, it's like, man, I was part of something special. And it's them, like the answer's inside of them. I just helped open it up a little bit.
Now, do you ever, so getting back to the speaking, because I feel like it reminds me of like when I used to in sports, like there were times where I'd get in like that zone where like I was in the zone. Do you get that when you're up there talking something? Like sometimes I just like start improvising and like it just is going like, and I'm like, it's like I'm doing something like completely different than I normally do, but like I'm in that zone. I get in there sometimes. Do you ever get that when you speak?
Yeah, it's just the best.
Yeah.
It just feels right. And sometimes I get it when I'm writing the speeches where you're just in that zone and it's, time flies by but you're just so locked in. And time kind of changes and that's just it's an incredible feeling. And I grew up my family being huge, like I was always smaller than everyone else because they were like, adults I was hanging around. And so I always had to just be like kind of a smart ass in order to just have a chance at survival. But my family, I mean, it was just always, always quick witted. And I loved watching stand up comedy. I mean, I was like an SNL guy with, Mike Myers, my favorite, and Farley. And then I was like, I got to try it. So I did stand up comedy for 2 years.
Oh, did you
And
really?
yeah, let me tell you, miserable human beings are stand-up comedy because they're literally nitpicking everything to try to find. And I remember I was at this one guy, we were in like Berwyn, Illinois, and I opened for him, and it was like a Saturday night maybe. And he's like, yeah, I just gotta get in my car and I gotta drive to North Dakota tomorrow. And he's like, what about you? And I was like, man, I'm gonna go to my job with health insurance. Like, I don't know, like I was like, things are pretty good. And the guys that really make it, I think they're great. But it's tough. But that was it because I like you, man. When you don't make people laugh, it is so awkward. And but it's exciting. I took an improv class at Second City, and that really helped my speaking. It's like if I can just make something out of nothing, I can probably do something if I have a clue. But I'll have those moments and I'll record my speeches. And I was like, man, I did not expect that to come out. I'm
Yeah.
really, really glad it did. And now I can use that going forward.
Yeah. And like the humor aspect, I think, I'm talking about a dark topic and
Yeah.
but like it can't be. I always say it's about there's a fear aspect. So the fear is like, look at all that. Look at what happened. Look at this. I didn't address this, and this is what happened. But like there also has to be the hope aspect. And one of the ways that I do that when I speak is like humor. Like I have to. Like
Yeah.
even in like the dark moments, like humor comes out because it can't
Right.
be all doom and gloom for my topic. Like,
No, right.
there's got to
Yeah.
be people have to see like, oh, this guy can joke around about this. How do you
Yeah.
use humor when you're up there, or even when you're coaching?
Yeah. A lot of it with speaking and coaching comes from, you kind of just start with that, like, dude, I'm an idiot. Like, I wish I would have figured this out sooner, but I'm a
Mm-hmm.
moron. And and I think that really helps. I'll have some story about just me and like my wife and how just idiotic. Like I said something that was just so dumb. And then I'll be like, oh my gosh, this guy, like he is a moron, but he's real, and
Yeah.
if he can figure it out, like I surely can, because,
Right.
I don't even know how this guy drove here today.
Yeah.
So the comedy piece matters a lot. And even sometimes just, interacting with the audience. Did a speech at, I think it was at Libertyville, and I brought two people up, and they just like, I think they actually started dating after. They were from two different schools, and they just connected. And I saw it, and I went with it, and I just, played up this whole thing about like them being together and how they were destined, and how I would officiate the wedding if I could, when they get married and stuff. And everyone saw it, and they were just like, they exchanged Snapchats, and then they were just hit it off the rest of the day. So just having fun, that's why I got into do it. I look at, comedians, I look at musical artists. They got to be up there. They got to be having fun. And if
Yeah.
you can have fun with the clients, I mean, the last coaching client, and we talked, I mean, our first 10 minutes of our hour-long session was about Chris Farley. We talked about Roadhouse. We talked about the impracticality of the movie Teen Wolf with Michael J. Fox. But it's relatability that you have to have with people, because you've got a heavy topic, and I could be like, oh man, my mom died, and then my brother died, and then my dad died. Like, people don't, like that's a good part of the story, but you've got to be able to build something from that.
Yeah. Well, and you ever feel like, this is one of the other things I feel is like, sometimes it's like I almost have like this superpower in a way where, like, when I'm up talking, I can see the people who are gonna come up and talk to me afterwards. Or like the other day I was speaking, and like I went to one of the teachers that was there, and I was like, I think you need to check on that girl who was sitting right there. I think you need to talk to her. And like he came back like at the end of the day and was like, you were right. Like, but it's just like, you can kind of see it when you're up there. Do you ever get that where you're talking about a topic and you just know that you are hitting that particular person?
Yeah, and you hone in, and I saw, actually, Zach came into my class, and he did it with a kid, and it was like, man, there's something up. Like, can we just talk to them for a second? And did and that's an important part of the work, and I think that's a vulnerability, and I mean, I like gain so much more respect from you, or for you, hearing that, because a lot of speakers, they're walking in, they're doing their bit, and then they're out.
Yeah.
And I think being teachers first makes a difference, because you're looking for those things, as opposed to just looking at get on a stage. Hey, my 42 minutes are up. I'm out of here.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. No, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. I feel like we could talk a lot more. I don't want to I feel like we could talk a lot more, and specifically, I think I need to have you back, because I think youth sports needs to be talked about. But like, we don't have enough time. I would like to talk about that.
Yeah.
For you have an older kid. I don't know. I just think that's going to be there's going to be some problems down the line with how things are set. Not just like, for me, from a basketball perspective, I'm like, dude, Europe is dominating us right now in basketball. Like, and I think part of it is how we have things set up, and that's not even taking into account the mental health stuff that I think is going to result from it, but just how things are set up, I just don't think are right. So I think eventually I want to have you back to talk about that.
No, I would love that. Yeah, I mean, I think my son's basketball program just got bought by a private equity firm. And like, how is that? How is that good for kids? Yeah, he's Breakaway.
Yeah, I had heard that.
Yeah. So, how, like, and they're, I mean, I love it. I love it there. I mean, he's had phenomenal coaches. He's the player he is in large part because of the systems they put in place. Like, I have nothing bad to say about them, but they've built up to where they have 10 teams. And I mean, there's a lot of these, they have 10 teams at the 6th grade level. Like, come on, man. Like, and he and I had that conversation. I'm like, we don't need to drive to Missouri to find out we're not the best team. Turns out there's some pretty good teams here in Chicago that you can lose to just fine.
Yeah, exactly.
So, those things are funny. And I could talk about the parenting, and I remember my niece out in Crystal Lake. They flew out to South Carolina to play against Libertyville, and it's like, well, you could have just driven 20 minutes to
Yeah,
play
right.
against them. So yeah, that's another topic altogether. But yeah,
Yeah,
kind of to close that, I think for the kids that are struggling, yeah, I mean, reach out to you, reach out to me, and kind of coming in with the parents of trying to figure out like what's our end game, what's our goal, what are we trying to do for them? Because if you have these expectations that aren't clear, that leads to just unnecessary resentment. So
yeah,
if you're saying to your kid, hey, I just want you to be happy, and your kid thinks that you think they want to be a D1 player, there's a disconnect there, and that's gonna break down, and that's where the challenge happens. And so I've, even with both of my sons, like, hey man, like, I just want to be happy. And my older son, like, he's in powerlifting and um, super smart kid, and it's like, dude, you've done enough homework. Like, it's like, take a break. Like, you don't
yes,
need to be crushed, or just even that moment of like, let's go get ice cream. Like, let's go. Just leave everything behind. Leave your phone behind. Let's go do it. And that's an important part as well.
yeah. Well, and I wanted to say this too. Now that I was thinking about like the leadership class and how you talk to those kids, like I always think, I don't want to get in trouble for this, but I think how like
Mhm.
education is right now. We are living in the
Yeah.
1950s. Like I think there's a lot of stuff that we're teaching that has no practical relevance to later on. But like the
Yeah.
leadership lessons, or I do like, and your son when he gets to Conan, if I ever have him, he'll have this. I do always do these Cougar Way lessons where like
Oh, yeah.
if I see something going wrong or I see a kid do something, like I address it right away. And then like I go into like this long explanation about why this and like all these different reasons of why. And I try to make it funny and humorous. But like I do
Yeah.
think it's way more important than anything else I could teach. And
For sure.
yeah, like just like little things that I think we are not addressing. And then we are focusing on like the stuff that doesn't really matter. Um,
Right.
I, I don't want to get in trouble for saying that stuff.
No, I think you're right. And that's my goal is as I'm, wrapping up with 8 years to go in my career, I want more schools to have this leadership program. And I'm actually working with a school right now to try to get a year-long thing there, which will be outside of a class, but then eventually turn it into a class. And I'm looking right now at my, I asked the kids, like, because of this class, what have you changed your mind about? When bad things happen, it doesn't mean it's the end of the world. Those bad things are opportunity to grow. Change my perspective. I'm more reflective. How I view things, and I'm more optimistic. Started going to the gym because of the class. Like, all those things, the compound effect of every small decision, and the habit stacking that you and I talked about, all of that matters. And I look at my class as almost like a daily motivational speech. And I'm going to, and there's a curriculum that's built, but some kid day 15 might hit them. It might be day 74 that hits them, but there's going to be something that they take away. And that's why I love asking that question, because it's like, all right, I taught you for 90 days. What did you take away? And everybody says something different. I'm like, good, that's how it should be. In the same way, when you speak, they might, man, the first thing he said was just, if I live with that right now, my life is going to be better. And the other kid might be the last thing you said or something in the middle. That's
Yeah,
what's so cool about it. But you're right. I think you're right. I think education has to make a shift. We have to be creating these soft skills, leadership, the ability for people to motivate, but then also have the systems in place of how to set a goal and how to succeed in a goal. There's so many things, and I bring in all the books that I've read, and I love John Acuff's book, All It Takes Is a Goal. And every time we talk, I post on Instagram. He reposts a story, and I mean, this is the guy that makes $25,000 a speech,
yeah,
and he's just a real awesome dude. And he's like, yeah, thanks, man. I really appreciate it. And I'm
yeah,
like, you have no business talking to me, but cool, this is
yeah.
great.
No, that's awesome. I guess the last thing I wanted you to do is tell people where they could find you. Like, where can people find you? Like your website, Instagram, how they could
Yeah.
connect with you. If they're looking to get in with coaching or they want to bring you in as a speaker, how could they do that?
Yeah. So the best way, I mean, Instagram is where I hang out the most, which is just at Coach Joe Bush. And then my website is joebushcoaching.com. But yeah, I'm like just a normal person. So if you message me on Instagram, I'll just respond. Or if you send me an email, I will respond. I don't have people, working my contracts for me. I'm not there yet anyway.
Not yet. Not yet. Will.
Not yet. Right. Pretty soon I won't even, people will just be churning out my Instagram.
Soon I'll be trying to get you back on for the
right, like,
new sports. Right now, I'm good.
Sorry, man. That'd be $10,000. I'm an expert on youth sports now. Yeah, that's fun. And I've had, I've gone up to speakers after and I've talked to them, and they've been great and they've been gracious. And I always want to be that way too. Although I do joke with my students. I said, I'll know that I made it if someday, I'll be speaking to, 40,000 people, and, Amelia will come up. She's like, oh yeah, I was in this class in 2026. Like, no, she's arrest her. She's trying to kill me or something. Like, get her out of here, man. She's been threatening me for years. So.
Oh, that is great. Well, yeah. You got any other final words that you want to leave us with?
No, I would say, just this, you and I having this conversation. This is what it's all about. Just, two people learning from each other. I'm gonna connect you with my buddy Sean Patrick over in Ohio. He's got the Just Call Dad podcast. And
I've seen that.
You've seen it. I think Zach was on it. And he's like, I'm a dad trying to figure it out. I want to talk to other dads that are trying to figure it out. And he's got some big names on there. And I think that's an important thing. And I think for you, as you're doing this podcast, just having real authentic conversations and then sharing those with other people. And let's just keep doing more of that and keep being open and vulnerable, because that's what's going to make a difference. And I could say 100%, like you made a difference in my son's life, and that's huge. And we're sitting here today because of him and everything that went into it. So I know that there's some other kid in wherever, Kansas City, Missouri, or wherever you go to speak, that you're going to make a difference in their life too. So I want to thank you for that. And if I can be any help and try to get you to speak to more people, I'm happy to do it.
Oh, that's awesome. I really appreciate it. And I always say, and you just did this today, I always say, by sharing our stories, not only do we help others, but I think we end up helping ourselves, because that's the Maley way.
Yeah, love it, man. Thank you.
Yeah, that was awesome. I really enjoyed that. Like I said, I would love to have you on again.